been trying to get me on here.
I know, forever. So we will do DisOrient first. Gamchan, welcome to DiversiTV. If you are new to DiversiTV, DiversiTV is the Lane TV weekly interview show, talking and discoursing and discussing about topics along the rubric of diversity, by Lane Community College and others. If you are part of our growing legion of fans, welcome back. DiversiTV occurs. We've been going for 13 seasons, which roughly covers LCC term, so almost 5 years now, with a little over 100 shows under our electronic belt. And tonight's guest celebrates an anniversary of sorts, or continuance of a good project, DisOrient, the film festival. And we'll be talking with our guest, Anselmo Villanueva. But to give a little introduction to DiversiTV and our mission, and we choose to because it's not impossible, is to illuminate everyday diversity issues and give the mic and the camera to those who don't always get it. We have been looking at systems, and part of the system that we're investigating has to do with public perceptions and how you get a voice of a community into a greater public awareness. DisOrient, Asian American Film Festival, is in this year in 2011. It started out as a grassroots film festival in 2005, started by Jason Mack, and is now an all-volunteer community event that features films that support social justice themes and break American and Pacific Islander stereotypes. Out of nearly 70 submissions this year, the programmers had a challenging time narrowing down this year's offerings to one of the best yet. The U.S. premiere of Red Sun in the Friday, April 29th at the Ford Lecture Hall of the Jordan Schnitzer Museum of Art, the U of O. Opening night feature is Jeff Chiba Stern's One Big Hapa Family. And we'll be try and discuss the films in detail. Followed by a reception at the Jordan Schnitzer Museum of Art Friday night, the 29th, with music by one of the festival's favorite musicians, Dalwen. Saturday starts at noon with Finding Face, an emotional story that depicts the horrific acid-burning attacks on Cambodian and other women in other countries. The directors and one of the brave victims will be on hand to attend the screening and answer questions. There'll be family-friendly films covering the gamut, fantasy, music, and offbeat humor later Saturday. And Saturday also covers Torah, Voices in the Clouds, these two separate films, and The House of So. Sunday starts with homegrown filmmakers from LCC, American Pacific Islander Rites of Passage program. And Sunday continues with Curtis Choi's You, Young People, and Will Doolittle's Cuba Impressions. Left by the Ship will screen for the first time in the U.S. on Sunday. And closing will be Surrogate Valentine, a romantic comedy. And join us for the after party. It's by Cafe and Bar in Oakway Center. VIP tickets are available online, $50 and $60 at the door for all days of the festival. And you can also contribute to the festival online as well at disorientfilms.org. There's the address, which you can also look at the schedule, because this will probably be too small for you to read, just to know that that website is active. And our guest tonight, Dr. Anselmo Villanueva, Executive Director of DisOrient. Welcome.
Thank you, Mark. Good to be here.
Finally get you here. So, this is a standard DiversiTV question.
Sure.
Where are you from?
Where am I from? Geographically, born and raised in Santa Barbara, California. Went on to UCLA. where I met my wife, Rosemary. And from there, both of us did graduate work at USC, got our master's degrees at USC. Then we moved up here to Oregon in the late 1970s. And during that whole time, we become classroom teachers. We started our careers in Ventura, California, which is just north of Los Angeles. And we're there for 8 or 10 years and then came up here. Again, applied for jobs in Eugene Public Schools and became teachers here in this local school district. Rosemary continues to teach. She's actually an ESL teacher, English as a second language, at Kelly Middle School in the North region. My career shifted quite a bit. I was in the classroom just for a little bit. Did school counseling, became central office administrator, did curriculum development around multicultural education. I was school principal in a couple schools. Took a time out for a while, and I was actually the principal at O'Hara Catholic School with the central office, and then came back out. Finished my career with
Central office at the Eugene School District.
Correct, central office at the Eugene School District. And then also ended my career with Eugene Public Schools as a principal of Adams Elementary School. To all that, probably late 80s, I entered a doctoral program here at the University of Oregon and actually began teaching with someone very well respected in this community. A lot of people know is Dr. Rob Proudfoot. He was my mentor in my committee, so right away it wasn't studying, it was already in the classroom as a, helping him to teach classes around multicultural education, cross-cultural communication. And as you know, fast forward to about 5 years ago, unfortunately he died, and so a lot of people are trying to continue his work. And so I got a taste for teaching at the college level, really liked it, and especially in teacher training and in administration. And I was really on a mission. It wasn't about making extra money, but I felt it was my responsibility because I had a lot of practical experience in elementary, middle, and high schools, that practical experience needed to be to those people who wanted to become teachers. And what's relevant to this particular program is that I saw a lot of issues surfacing with school-age children and students that were not being attended to. And to be honest, I was on a mission for, in my small part, that future teachers and administrators at least were sensitive to those issues, if not had the skills, and if for whatever reason they felt that they could not do that kind of work the way I pitch it to them, then probably should look for another profession, because I've seen the damage done.
Not to put too fine a point on
exactly,
it. Right?
Exactly. And I've seen the damage done when people are fairly obviously insensitive, but also when they may not have at all and think they are, and just lots of damage. And so all along, also I've been doing a lot of community work here in Eugene, throughout the Willamette Valley, and actually at the national level on issues in diversity. And when I met Jason Mack, when he was an undergrad here at the University of Oregon, I could tell right away that he was engaged in political action and social justice. He was part of APASU. They brought in lots of different speakers and workshops. And so I became friends with him, and we just hit it off right away. And ever since then, I kind of lose track of time. I'm guessing that was mid-90s maybe. And so when Jason graduated, now I'm getting into a little bit of DisOrient.
Right.
Because it's all, I think all the history and the context is important to understand how something happens. It just,
right.
You just don't open the,
Right.
Exactly. You just don't open a book and I think I'll do a film festival,
Right.
So Jason was born and raised here in Eugene. Went to Eugene schools, Chinese American, parents also here. He's one of 3 siblings, the other are sisters. And so he finished here at University of Oregon, and he got his first quote-unquote real job at Lane Community College in human resources.
Right.
And was doing great, but he always knew that he wanted to pursue a graduate degree. So he started filling out applications and talking to the students here, managing the cameras because they're students. So his story is, I think, fairly unique. He applied to many what I would consider top-notch schools across the country. And he sort of settled on those, and he indeed got accepted by 2, both Berkeley and UCLA.
Sort of settled on
Yeah,
Berkeley
exactly,
and UCLA.
exactly,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how
What
he,
a fallback
yeah.
position.
And that's kind of how he pitched it to me on the phone. And Jason says, what do I do on someone's UCLA, Berkeley? I said to him basically, Jason, just flip a coin. They're both really good schools.
Right.
And so he ended up going to UCLA to study Asian American Studies, and found out that film is a way to really begin to look at is another way to study something or to portray something. And as you know,
yeah, it's kind of like if a picture is worth 1,000 words, then film can compress a lifetime, an hour
exactly,
and a half,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so these are my words now. He got enamored with film, and as you know, UCLA has a fine film school. He didn't major in film, but he started drifting that way and got to know some of the other students in film. And I believe at that time he went to Los Angeles has a huge Asian American Film Festival, so he got to see what a film festival was about.
Yeah.
And
Right.
the meaning of it and the contributions to the community. And so when he came a couple years to Eugene, he said, why not Eugene? And so at the time, he was also teaching a couple classes at Lane Community College, and he connected with yet another professor up there, Nadia Rasa, who theology and some other courses up at Lane. And the both of them said, again, let's do it. And so they planned it for several months and involved the community and different community members, all walks of life, anyone who had a gift or strength to contribute. And lo and behold, the first festival happened, and it coincided with the Asian celebration. And different venues, and so it's progressed into its 6th year, and Jason is still back in HR, working for a local school district, and it's a very demanding job.
Yeah.
And he has a toddler at home with yet another one on the way. I don't know if that's
Yes.
it's public now.
Oh, it's public now,
Okay,
right?
yeah, exactly.
All of us knew about it.
Yeah. So about a year ago, about this time, one of those calls you get from a friend, oh, we should do lunch sometime. And I said, sure, let's go out and have lunch. And he was already talking about that maybe he would step back. And I said right away that if no one else wants to step up to be executive director, I'd be honored to do that, to continue the great work and foundation that Jason has laid. To be honest, my background is not film. I enjoy film as a viewer, but the inner workings of film, watching, for example, you folks set up here, all the technology, I appreciate it, but it's not my forte. My forte is community organizing and organizing events. I have a pretty large, portfolio or years of experience doing those kinds of things. So I'm bringing those skills in, and I brought, some of the same people continue over the years. We've brought in some new people, and that's the other things that DisOrient do. Let me back up a little bit, and you read it, but it's clear that the foundation that Jason and Nadia built upon was one about social justice.
Yeah.
Social justice, let's use film to convey social. Many film festivals, they're great, but they're about film as the art form or the technology, regardless of the theme. And so DisOrient is almost...
In fact, the theme is sort of like, the technique is more centralized, the theme or the message.
Correct.
And that's kind of like dare I say it, but it is DiversiTV, kind of an Anglo-academic point of view without looking at, the message and you're saying in terms of, portraying a community.
Yeah, and as you know, Mark, people who look like you, people look at us, we're literally portraying diversity all the time as soon as we walk out on the street. So you have to know background, the history, the experiences, be open to new things, and I think that's what DisOrient is about.
Why the title?
Jason...
I mean, it is catchy.
Yeah,
but.
well, to be honest, I don't know that very little piece of that history, but I'm sure Jason was, probably driving someplace, and that title popped into his mind. And as you know, we're here to try to dispel stereotypes about Asian American people and Pacific Islanders, and oftentimes we are recognized as Orientals or graphical place called the Orient.
Right.
So DisOrient, you know, and I
Inscrutable Orientals.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I again play on words. You know, we're
Yeah.
the establishment.
Yeah.
You know, so it's
Dissing
really
that stereotype.
exactly. It's really a clever title, and we are really well known now. What I say to people, we're small but mighty. I mean, I just got Florida that I'm going to play my voicemail to the crew tomorrow night. Just, we heard about you. How did you start? That kind of a thing. And I go,
wow.
Yeah. So it's really great.
6 years old and already
exactly,
you're experts.
Exactly.
Hey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
It occurs to me another U of O graduate, Daryl Wing Sue,
Right.
who expanded upon Chet Pierce's and other works on microaggressions.
Exactly.
Right, and Daryl et al. The paper "Racial Microaggressions in Everyday Life." You can look it up on the
Right.
net, or I can send you a link if you email DiversiTV at the end of the show,
Right.
and I can send you all
I'm
that
actually
stuff.
familiar with his work.
Yeah, right. And so, what I liked about his expansion on Chet's is the 9 species of microaggressions, right? And micro insults, and it's great because one of the things that he talks about that we've often both experienced, I know, recently within this community and elsewhere, is you're an alien in your own homeland. Like, okay, where are you from? Like, you're not from here.
Yeah.
Y'all kind of people not from this place, right?
Exactly.
As well as the microaggressions of using dated terminology, like being called colored or being called Oriental, and all the stereotypes that go along with what you're supposed to be according in the Western or Occidental imagination.
Correct.
So beginning to look at not just just quoting from the press release that was online. If you go to DisOrient.org, talks about Asians are not just food and martial arts.
Right. That's correct.
Actual people with a history, great grasp of not only technology, but one of the things that I liked that Jason's incorporated that is still going on to this day is taking and teaching the young people. So that there's that whole piece that has always been going on with Lane's Rites of Passage, which is in its 16th or 17th year, I forget.
Right.
Having been from we get old and we forget that stuff, and so having sat with a camera and teaching them editing and all that kind of stuff, and they put together really great stuff.
Right. There's been some really fine films out of the Rites of Passage students. They're always featured in the program, and this year we have a couple of them that will be featured, and it's our hope that DisOrient, that we would branch out to create a foundation, DisOrient Foundation, that would allow for scholarship building and support of young filmmakers here locally or other places, so that they can get some support to do that kind of work and set up workshops, classes. Rites of Passage is great, don't get me wrong, but it's only in the summer, and these kids live here year round, so we're looking at some way to build some capacity within what Rites of Passage is doing throughout the academic year for these students.
Yeah. Can you talk about some of the films?
Sure. There are a couple, for me personally, I'll talk personally, it's some really compelling films, and I'll back up a little bit. One of the things that I think is a highlight of DisOrient is that we pick films that are both local and national in scope, but we also hope to be able to bring in the filmmakers or the actors or the subjects, and that has been happening ever since the inception of DisOrient. Yes, it's an issue, but it's important to us to really connect the real faces, the real people who did the production of the film or who are in the films to be here, so that people see that it's, you just don't pick this film off the shelf, someone's work, and they make that connection.
70 films off the shelf. That'd
Exactly.
be hard to even pick which one do you do.
Exactly.
But I do kind of detect a theme, or at least with several of them.
Right.
Which it didn't occur to me, but it kind of means, like, for example, one Hapa family.
Correct.
The Japanese, Canadian,
Right.
Well, the internment camps. Wait, Cuban internment camps.
Exactly. Yeah. Or the Cuba. Yeah. Exactly. Let me again back up a little bit. You've been trying for a long time to get me here, and just by almost coincidence, for DisOrient, but not really, is this whole thing about the mixed racial, multiracial, multi-ethnic identity across this country, actually now across all over the world.
Yeah.
People are talking about it. And so we had a handful of films that were submitted. The ones that finally came in are a couple that talk about that, and they are featured. One Big Hapa Family, opening night, and then the one Left by the Ship, Sunday evening, and let me check when one is featured is Saturday night, Voices in the Clouds. And let me talk about each of those three films to some degree. Again, you mentioned we always think that Asian American, African American, Latinos, but we don't get sometimes that there are other countries who are dealing with that same issue. And so, sure enough, right to the north of us, Canada. So we have Japanese Canadians, Japanese Americans here, Japanese Canadians. And this whole issue of being mixed is a phenomenon up there as well. And Jeff Chiba Stearns, who he himself is mixed, recognized that. And so it started as I had a family reunion. He just kind of looked around and saw, well, how many, quote unquote, married couples are both Japanese, and about their children. And it turned out the majority of the people at that picnic had, married out.
Yeah.
And so that's that one. Another one.
And, actually, even a predictable reason, because of the whole anti-Japanese sentiment during the war.
Exactly.
You like, okay, well, I have to go out because, how else am I going to be accepted unless I do that, right?
And then, again, there's different nuances, and I'm coming at this from a personal experience. My background's Filipino. My father came over from the Philippines in the 1920s. 99.9% of the people during that era were men. And so who are they going to marry?
Right.
They didn't have enough money to send for a woman back to the Philippines. They were here as teenagers. They get older in their 20s. And so by and large, during that generation, most of the men married people who are not Filipino. So there's a very personal connection to these three films that I'll talk about for me personally. And then also many people in this community, because as you well know, there's a predominant group of people in this community. Honey, for example, started many years ago with Sarah Ross, 25 plus years ago, about trying to provide support for biracial and multi-ethnic children. And since then, they've been going strong. Calc has done a photo exhibit on mixed race people, and I saw the need, and so that's one of the class teacher at the U of O. Developed a class on the mixed race, multi-ethnic experience. It was like standing room only, and because there were a lot of students on this campus, and it gave them a venue to come and really explore that identity. So I was really excited. On purpose, I was not part of the screening committee because I felt that the executive director's role, there shouldn't be any power dynamics in there about, well, what does he think, And so there was people. Rose Pergamon is the program director in terms of the films, and there was a committee that viewed all 70 plus films. They narrowed it down. Rose put together the program as you see it now, and lo and behold, these three films that I'll talk about in a minute that speak right to the mixed race experience. And so I'm particularly excited about this year's lineup. Not that last year's wasn't great, but for me personally, and it's very near and dear to my heart. So the second film I'll talk about, again, Saturday night, make sure I have my schedule right here, Voices in the Clouds, talks about, again, a mixed race, Taiwanese, born in the United States. I'm pretty sure he was born here. And his mother left Taiwan at an early age and kind of didn't look back. And I'm guessing this young man's probably mid-30s, late 30s, has in Florida. And he finds that his mother died a premature death, and he was just kind of in a lurch here. So he developed a multicultural festival of indigenous people in Florida because he knew that his mother was actually, there are 12 indigenous tribes in Taiwan. Before I saw this film,
What?
exactly,
Really?
exactly, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so his mother was part of one of these tribes, and exactly the name, I should have written it down. And so after his mother died, he developed this festival of indigenous people, met someone from Taiwan who is the local expert in Taiwan, or national expert in Taiwan, of indigenous people, brought her over to Florida to this festival, and they connected immediately. So she invited him to go back to this journey basically to find his roots. And it was just one of those, I'm just getting the chills right now talking about it, because it was one of those times that a young man went back. He had no idea of his ancestry. And so also what has happened in Taiwan is that, again, we think we're the only ones who do these kinds of things, but the government was on a mission to basically assimilate these tribes into mainstream. And what's unique about these particular tribal people, again, 12 tribes, is facial tattoos. And I believe on the poster, or there's a picture of one of the women. Right. She has very pronounced facial tattoos, and that's part of their culture. And they're about, in terms of elders, probably 20 or 25 left. And so the film was about going and finding some of these people and talking to them. And I won't say too much more because I don't want to give away how it unfolds.
Spoiler.
But it's a great film about someone on this quest about their own identity. And I think we all search for that. Yeah. It's an assumption, I think, and I don't know if you've talked with people on this program, that as people of color, we know that it's just, again, automatic.
Comes
yeah,
with the territory,
exactly.
Right?
And to some degree, some of it, but really, you have to study it, you have to learn it, talk to people from your own ethnic or cultural background. You begin to formulate your own, and it's a story about this young man who did exactly so.
Yeah, it's not on Ancestry.com, and we don't have culturally specific on Ancestry.com.
Exactly.
So
the third film I want to talk about screens, in terms of the mixed race, but it's not about mixed. There's so many themes in the next one I'll talk about. It's pretty incredible. It's called Left by the Ship. It screens Sunday evening early around 6. And it's the story of this phenomenon of U.S. military around the world. And so they focus on this one situation in the Philippines, where, as you know, during World War II and Vietnam, and sure about the Korean War, but there was a heavy presence of U.S. military bases in Clark Air Force Base, in Subic Bay. And so most of the military are male, men. So they're stationed there, and, men,
men.
stray, stray from the base or stray from their mission, so to speak, and they begin to, connect with the local Filipino women in this case. And what happens in this film is that, and it's happening, and it continues to happen, is that babies are born. And in this particular case, the Philippines, like in many other countries, and again, we think it's just here, there is this thing called the color gradient.
Right.
That sometimes the lighter you are, regardless of your background, more privilege, more acknowledgement. The darker you are, not so much. Well, some of the subject of this film, so this journalist, who is a product of one of these unions, he decides that he needs to do something about it. So he is on this mission, find these young adults. They've identified about 52,000 throughout the country, probably mostly around where the bases used to be, because the bases pulled out, and I believe in the late 90s. Actually follows their story, and it's just really, it just really gets to your heart about the stories of these 4 or 5 young people and how they are struggling to eke out an existence in the Philippines. And so the factor also, not only biracial, multiracial, but the fact that the color gradient enters in, because a couple of them are very dark complected. And then the whole idea of, well, do these young adults have any rights because their fathers are U.S. citizens?
Right.
And so as I understand it, and I'm going to do some further research, is that up until the age 18, they can apply for U.S. citizenship. Well, the biological fathers are long gone. A lot of them have left that situation. So it opens up. It's very, very touching. These are my words. The young man who's a journalist basically is a scene of a ship pulling off, left by the ship.
Right.
I'm here. So he's writing a letter to his father or an email, for your basically 1 minute of pleasure, I'm having to deal with this the rest of my life. And I mean, it's just really compelling. And so that's yet another film. And it's not about being biracial or multiracial to some degree.
Right.
It is.
But it is a phenomenon because, I mean, that's even happening, in our, shall we say, our adventures in the I dare say in Iraq and Afghanistan, etc., where you're having that same thing going on.
Exactly.
The Nam era, everywhere we've been.
Exactly.
I mean, I know certainly as an addictions counselor, globally speaking, worldwide, the spread of HE is connected to the American military.
That's right. That's right.
We're spreading that, right? So, yeah.
So one of the differences here, and again, this is about social justice, and it actually is moving me now to do something about it. But first, I need to do a little bit of research. But I believe the Philippines, based on what we're talking about, and as you say, there are military personnel in the Middle East, all over the world.
Yeah.
The Philippines is the only country that's not recognized by in terms of giving any benefits to those children.
Really?
Yeah, and those of us who've seen it are like scratching our heads. What's going on there?
Why?
Exactly. That's the research I need to find out.
Because you got to figure. Okay, so this is America. Race plays into it, obviously.
Yeah.
Right? So just like dark-skinned Cubans don't get to, when they land in Florida, they get sent back as if they're Haitians. What is the you let Taiwanese, you let Vietnamese, Laotian, not Philippines, and we've probably had the longest military relationship with the Philippines of any of those places.
That's correct. So I'm not, like you're saying, I'm not sure what's going on with that, but I want to find out, and again, like I said, for me personally, it's moving me to action. So and that's the idea of social justice and using film to convey social justice. We want to show films for entertainment, but we want them to move people to do something about it.
Yeah.
And not all the films that DisOrient has shown over those 6 years do that, because to be honest, Jason and others felt that would be just too heavy. So there are some lighter films, that humor or musicals or something. But in essence, if you really dissect those, they're also about social justice, have social justice themes. The other film I want to talk about, so I talked about the 3 in terms of mixed race, but again, each of those has yet other major themes. But this other film, let me check the schedule. It's comes on Saturday, 12. It's a feature documentary. It's called Finding Face, and it's again it's very hard for me personally to describe it because it's like totally out of my world thinking about this phenomenon.
It is intense. I'm viewing the clip.
Oh yeah,
you can see the clip online.
Yes.
Go ahead.
We have mutual friends who've seen it who can't stay seated during the whole thing. They have to give a little bit. It's that powerful. I would encourage the viewers to stay seated and watch. Just close your eyes or something. Don't leave the theater. But Finding Face is about this phenomenon that when someone wants to do harm to a person, you beat them up or If you really want to do them harm, you kill them, you shoot them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in some countries,
That's the American way,
right,
anyway.
In some countries in Asia, some countries in the Middle East, that I'm over, they figure, well, that's too easy and it's over if you kill someone. Well, so they've turned to throwing acid on people from the chest up, so that would really maim them for life. And so this particular story tells a story of Marina, her real name, who was trying to eke out a living for herself and her family through the karaoke circuit in this particular city in Cambodia. So a government official, senior government, like I think number 2 person in the country, spots her and just fixates on her and basically stalks her to the point where he has her imprisoned in a hotel room for about 10 days, and during that time says, you will be doing what I tell you to do, otherwise I'm going to hurt your family. So she's caught, and so she's, be in this relationship that's not wanted with this man. Over time, she's letting her family know a little bit, but they're, what can you do?
Right.
Especially if your
government
has
official.
no means, and it's a senior government official.
Right.
Exactly. So she finally gets away from this relationship, and the senior official's wife is actually the one responsible for the acid. That's a whole nother twist on it. So her brother, who was Segundo, who's living over here, I'm sure they're in communication all this time, but then finds this out, says, no, you need to come over here to medical attention. So he's able to get her out of the country, and she has a series of operations. And, with all the medical advances, she's still not going to be back to where she was, a young woman.
Right.
And so both of them are living on the East Coast, and we're actually going to bring both of them to the festival. They will be here on Saturday to view the film and to be introduced to the audience, and questions and answers there. The other part of DisOrient is that we want to really highlight local filmmakers. Lo and behold, one of the filmmakers, Patty Duncan, is a professor of women's studies up at OSU. I met her before up at KBOO, another radio station.
Right.
When we took the ROP kids up there to be on one of their programs. So she and I have had a email communication over the years, and when I found out about that film, and one thing led to another. So she and her partner Sky, they live in the Portland area. They will also be here on hand, and it's going to be, I think, for many people, those 2 films I just talked about, Left by the Ship as well, Finding Face, are going to be very difficult for a lot of people to watch, but yet those stories need to be told.
Right, because they're not being told by Hollywood.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And again, why DisOrient? Social justice, using film as the medium to get the message. And those 2 films, for me personally, are the 2 films that really convey that social justice piece, especially if someone's new to either social justice or to the Asian American Pacific Islander experience. Yeah. Again, breaking stereotypes. Not everyone's, Yo-Yo Ma or whoever, So
if people even know who Yo-Yo Ma is, that's breaking the stereotype there, right?
And again, I mentioned about the youth. We have 4 generations of what we call staff. They're all volunteer from various ethnic communities within the Asian American Pacific Islander communities here locally. And we have other people from other ethnic groups, Native American, white, Anglo-American people still participating, and it's just been really a great experience to see, in this case, a small community of people coming together over several years to coordinate this festival for the general public. And going back to the introductory statement, these festivals are popping up because Hollywood and mainstream won't recognize their work,
Right.
or won't recognize actors to be doing something else other than a particular stereotype.
And these are
And so-
actors even that are actually getting work within Hollywood.
Exactly.
In either television
Right.
series or bit parts in other movies.
Right.
So you'd think, okay, you get on the other side of the camera. Robert Redford, Sundance, show us some love, or
Right.
something.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And there are probably, I would guess, about 20 Asian American film festivals across the United States. Probably 4 or 5 are really huge: San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, Philadelphia. Los Angeles, for example, is like 10 days,
Wow.
multiple venues, just lots and lots of films going on.
Well, we can
all over.
dream Eugene
Well-
and the Bijou, and thanks to the Bijou.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. The Bijou has been really nice and cooperative. It's people who watch this show know what it's like doing organizing, and so trying to find a day, negotiating, and the Bijou has been incredibly nice in working with us to really maximize opportunities in terms of dates, and also in terms of the rental for the particular theater, and it's really great.
So, anything else about the films?
No, I think just again about the festival. We talked about the Bijou. We wouldn't be able to do DisOrient personal donors and sponsors, and I'll say a little bit about that. We have donors who continually give since day one because they feel it's important. And to be honest, we know who they're anonymous people. They don't say right on the check, I want to be anonymous, but they're
Yeah,
people
right.
in the community of all walks of life, all ethnic groups, who feel that this kind of work is important. So that's where they give their money. The other piece is that we do have agencies or organizational sponsorships. Lane Community College has always been a sponsor. This couple years in her new role, Donna Kagi, yes, how can I help? And the U of O has been incredibly helpful in sponsoring.
With
and,
the Schnitz.
Yep, and we're trying to expand. And again, that's about the justice piece, that everyone has a responsibility to help make DisOrient happen. Not just a select group, but everyone. And so this year we launched a campaign called 1,000 Friends of DisOrient. And 1,000 Friends of DisOrient, $10.
$10?
$1, whatever it is, be
Yeah.
a friend of DisOrient to help support the work that we're doing. It's, as they say, a labor of love, and we wouldn't be able to do it without our sponsors. We have local businesses. We do have a group for the filmmakers and people who buy a VIP pass. So there's continually food in there. So we have restaurants donating food. We have other people, donating other kinds of things, printing. For example, and helps to make DisOrient work. It's not a commercial venture.
Yeah.
It's not a business. And what I've been saying to the staff this year, we need to run it in a business-like fashion, but it's not a business, and it's different. We need to be accountable for the money. We need to really talk about priorities and budget, but we're not a business. We're about social justice, and we're about using film to convey those messages.
What about, maybe you're an executive director, so that means you actually do think about development and think about the future and directions, et cetera. In the years, I've been every year, and so you actually have picked up a few, at festival rates from filmmakers.
Exactly.
And so, you can look at clips on YouTube and stuff like that, but after the filmmakers leave, how do you get a hold of the films once they're gone? Maybe, if there were like a DisOrient store.
Well, that's what we're thinking about, and usually the store then would be, some of them have set up links, or they have their own website where you can buy online their DVDs, but we're not in the business of retail, so to speak.
Right.
So we would have a link to their website, and then, that's a piece that needs to be fully developed, because a lot of them, a couple of I've seen over the years actually been posted, and again, my lack of technology, there's a couple programs that you can download, you can just stream them. You know, they want the message to get out. It's not about making the money, and so they're offering them for free. There's a couple like that, and a couple have gone through and made it to Hollywood or Blockbuster.
Right.
So that's been really great.
Netflix, whatever.
Yeah, and so we support them we do a email blast or media blitz around. Yes, this particular film that's here is now available at Blockbuster, and that's been like a highlight.
So, where do you go from here? DisOrient.
Well,
And then you.
Yeah, okay. DisOrient, I think you need to always think about the future. Oftentimes when you have an organization that's totally grassroots driven, community based, we're so busy doing the work, you're maybe 1 or 2 days out, you know? And so what we really need to be doing, the executive director and other people involved need to be looking further out.
Yeah.
3 years
Yeah.
out, 4 years out. And there's a couple things I believe are on the horizon, some seeds that whether I'm going to continue to be the executive director, I don't know if I'm almost like selected or I'd be happy to continue. But one of the things I talked about, like Los Angeles, and again, Los Angeles is fairly huge geographically, but I've not been to their festival or San Francisco's, but they don't have it all over. I'm sure they have it in 4 or 5 theaters in a certain area. Well, we don't have that here.
Yeah.
And so Jason laid the groundwork. It's actually DisOrient Asian American Film Festival of Oregon. And we've screened the last 3 years up in Portland, not at the same time, maybe a week or two later.
Okay.
And so the idea, Jason, about having multiple venues, meaning cities.
Yes. Right.
So the dream would be Eugene, maybe Corvallis, Portland. Of all places, I was just contacted by Klamath Falls. Klamath Falls. There's interest there. There's a small Asian American community. So all of that is possible. And so if you take the model of what we're doing, we wouldn't necessarily replicate it, but we would use our people power and resources to spin out festival like we're doing in Portland, screenings of some films. And it's been fairly successful. So what's limiting that? Basically, it's the budget piece. It's money and time. But also what's limiting is just the time to develop those relationships. The towns or the venues I talked about, we have a lot of support. A lot of us personally have colleagues or friends. They're and they're kind of inviting, come on down. So I think we'll go to places where we don't have to convince anyone that it needs to happen, that we already have some friends there, so that would happen. And the other part is, you probably know, it takes a lot of hours and energy to put something like this on.
Right. Yeah.
And so if we were to spread it out over the year, it'd give us some breathing, room in between.
Yeah.
The other part, we don't have 501c3 status right now.
Okay.
We're under the fiscal sponsorship of CABA, Chinese American Benevolent Association, which, by the way, has been very supportive over the years, both in terms of using their tax ID number and all of what that means, but also financially. They've helped us financially quite a bit. And CABA also is the organization that sponsors the Chinese lion dancers that a lot of people know.
Right.
So that to go after our own 501c3 status, and that's in the works, and set up a board and all of that, what nonprofits do. My way of thinking is actually to set up a national level board, meaning get people from the country, maybe international now, because we have some people, to sit on the board of directors. And they would convene a couple times a year, probably via Skype or conference phone or something like that. But then we would have a local city that would be kind of be doing the work. But I think it's important that way because going back to the history, when DisOrient was first arrived on the scene, there was actually one up in Seattle, another Asian American civil But the last 3 or 4 years, that particular film festival has been kind of in limbo, and I can predict why. Probably, I don't know the people personally, but everyone's got day jobs and that kind of thing, and so to sustain some film festival, and that's the other part. Eventually, when you ask what's on the horizon, I think it would really be healthy for DisOrient to have someone paid half-time or whatever, like a business manager, maybe part-time executive director, who can provide some continuity, can be different places, because everyone has a day job. They can't do an interview midday or go talk to a particular donor in the evening when business hours. So you need to have someone available during business. So we're looking at that. I mentioned about the scholarships, maybe through a foundation. So those are things that are being talked about. This is actually a year-long process. We're going to give basically May off. They will be filling out a pretty intense written evaluation, but our first meeting is June 5th, a Sunday. And then on June 5th, we'll set the summer calendar of meetings, and the first couple meetings this summer, we're actually going to be looking at dates for 2012. We're going to collect everything. I've been watching what else is happening this particular weekend. 8 months ago, we were the only thing, and we tried to get the word out to people, but a lot of Asian American Pacific Islanders are just popping up this weekend, plus other events that would kind of force people, well, what should I go to, DisOrient or that? And we don't want to be in the competing.
There are tons of things happening this weekend. It's really amazing.
Yeah, we don't want to be in the position of competing with people. We want to support, and I'll give you it for instance. And again, this is the nuts and bolts of organizing. When we looked at dates, we put everything out that we knew of, including the calendar that the Bijou had, because they only had certain weekends or certain dates that they were available, because they book quite a ways out. The event, unfortunately, we will be missing is May 1st. It's become the National Day of Immigrant Rights. Right. And so
natural tie-in there. Wow.
We knew about that, and last year we actually had a film about immigrant rights. And so what we did, we screened that up in Portland. It was the separate weekend from the festival, and we were able to participate in their May 1st activities in Portland. Then we screened the film in the evening, and great thing. But this year, again, just the coincidence of things. However, having said that, we have a lot of friends coming down from Portland who are going to stop in Salem first, participate in the rally, and then be down here for the Sunday evening in December.
I want to put a bug in your ear.
Sure.
Right? And that is, I've mentioned this to David, at some point.
David Tam?
David Tam of CABA, right? And Sherry and I's project, I2M, early on, we had talked with Ada Lee about, okay, what hasn't been done is the history of Asian Pacific Islanders, Chinese people, whoever, in Eugene.
Exactly.
Right? So, why depend on the Register Guard or, that kind of media for your history? So maybe that should be a film project at some point.
Funny you should ask. There's...
well, I wanted to put that bug in here because actually we're having to... I'm going to have to let it stand there.
Okay. Got it.
But I want to thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me finally.
Hey.
Invite me back again now that I know the format and how to reach you. Sometimes it's just hard, the dates and the timing. So.
Yeah. If you like what you've seen, email us at diversitv@liveclass@lanecc.edu. Put DiversiTV in the subject line. Tell a friend. Tell us what you like. And till next time, go well, stay well.